brand new Ammach program. You're in for an interesting ride. This is the Ammach Files. Hosted by peoplesinternetradio.com.
Hello and welcome to Program 40. Who can believe that? Of course, it's the Ammach Files, which means it's Tuesday, and I hardly dare say we're as near to 11 o'clock as we can get. And of course, today is that Tuesday, which is the 21st of July, 2015. Now, my original guest for this evening wasn't able to make it right at the last minute. And I wasn't sure I'd even have a show for you tonight, so I'm really delighted that you have to put up with me. I had a chat with a fellow researcher who's working on a book with a wonderful therapist, Barbara Lamb. And we're just going to do a little shout out to Barbara because she recently had a stroke and is making a great recovery. So Barbara, we're sending you all our best wishes and look forward to having you on the show another time. So Barbara Lamb has a wealth of information and experience of regressing hundreds of abductees. And now she's working with this researcher on a book about hybrids. And they mentioned someone who had embraced the knowledge and had come through many challenging issues and experiences to accept that not only were they an experiencer, but they are also a hybrid. So I am delighted that you will have a very rare insight into the life of someone blended in consciousness and genes, both human and ET. But firstly, I wanted to flag up the interview I was asked to do this morning for BBC Radio Kent. And an interesting coincidence is, as I was set to do a pre-record for the show for this evening at 8 o'clock this morning, I was up and prepared. So when I heard the phone go about 8:15 a.m., I obviously left it to ring on as I was still trying to work out whether my guest and I would be able to make something work. But it was apparent that it wasn't going to happen. And that freed me up to do the Radio Kent slot. And it was in response to the so-called new initiative, which is a £64 million project called Breakthrough Initiative, funded by, it's funded by the Moscow startup billionaire Yuri Milner, and it is also backed by the Royal Society. Now, this is also a SETI type of operation, and essentially Dr. Stephen Hawking has put his name to it, and he is backing the venture to listen for ET. Isn't that nice? Now, it seems honestly that this further distraction away from the reality that ET is well and truly ensconced in humanity's experience and within human society, as far as I can see, is a further enshrouding of the truth. So just to give you a little bit of heads up on how far in our modern era this has been known, honestly, listening for ET, what are they like? And radio waves at that. So that on the 23rd of September 1947, General Nathan Twining, head of the US Air Force Materiel Command, in the renowned document known as the Twining Memo, which was declassified from top secret a while ago, stated, after research and looking at the whole UFO issue, said, the phenomenon reported is something real, not visionary or fictitious, and went on to describe the type of craft reported and made further comments pertaining to the reality of these. Now, on November the 20th, 1950, we have the Smith Memo. And I think Ben had just put that up, just so you can read it along as well. Now, Wilbert Smith was the head of a very senior man as a radio engineer in the Canadian government. And he wrote this memo, the Smith Memo, which again was I don't know whether this one was top secret, but anyway, it was in response to a conversation with the physicist, the American Dr. Robert Saubacher, who was a top scientist working with the Pentagon on defense issues. Now, what we have is four comments, and these are very apposite as to what is going on about this subject, bearing in mind this was written in 1950. So it says, the matter is, this is A, the matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, rating higher than the H-bomb. B, flying saucers exist. Not that they may, but they do. C, their modus operandi is unknown, but concentrated effort is being made by a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush, and he is an American and nothing to do with the Bush family of late. And D, the entire matter is considered by the US authorities to be of tremendous significance. So I don't know, you tell me. And to prove a further point, the English Lord Hugh Dowding, Air Chief Marshal of the RAF Fighter Command, published a statement on the 11th of July 1954, and this was in a paper called a London paper called the Sunday Dispatch, and this was also in response to a UFO flap that occurred over Europe in 1954. He states that, back then, there were more than 10,000 sightings reported, and the majority of them could not be explained through any scientific explanation. They had been tracked on radar, yes, all the way back then, and going in the region of 9,000 miles an hour, and that they were not manufactured by any nation on Earth, and in conclusion, they come from some extraterrestrial source. So I think it is interesting then to note that Professor Hawking feels it's safe to just listen out for ET. In April 2010, I think it was in one of the history programs, he mentions concerns about ET contact along the lines of the outcome would be much as when Columbus landed in America, which of course didn't turn out too well for the Native Americans. Of course, if we base our own expectations of ET on our own astonishing belligerent behaviours, where psychopaths appear to have the upper hand in many aspects of human society, then we would have cause for concern. I think, rather, I would say, or that I know, ET does have indeed capability technologically to bring us to our knees, but they don't, at least not at the moment. They choose to work with us in a variety of ways that challenge our perceptions of life and the universe. We are only yet toddlers besides them. But then, yet again, there are many who maintain that there are many races out there who do, in fact, support human endeavours and the human evolutionary process. And I'm sure that we are going to hear some very extraordinary things from my guest this evening, who is a young woman that I am sure will stimulate a lot of questions from you there in the chat room and anywhere else with people who are listening. So I'm looking forward to speaking to CHARMAINE D'Rozario-SAYTCH right after her first choice of song, which is, let me get to it, it's a track from the 2011 album, The Whirling Dervish, sounds very appropriate, by, even more appropriate, Mad Dog McRae. Well, that was lovely. Thanks for that choice, Charmaine. I hadn't heard of Mad Dog McRae before, but I love that stuff. So tell us a little bit. I'm afraid we can't get you live at the moment, which is a real shame. Do tell us a little bit about your background. Now, I know that you are a healer, and when I say healer, that you've been practicing things like Reiki, and that you're a nutritionist, amongst other things. But this is on the back of, I see that you have been also involved in media to some degree. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then we will set the stage for your experiencer reports.
Right, brilliant. Yes, well, I started theatre at a very young age. My mother sent me to theatre art school when I was 6. Completely loved it. And then thought my life was just going to be that, and then got very into healing. And as you said, I'm a Reiki master and do angel healing and courses. Very interested in nutrition. Mostly I was brought to that by having illness myself. And that got me interested in nutrition and different foods we have and the effect that it has on us, and water and what's really in it. So that got me very interested in the whole health side of things. and really combined that with the healing. And then I found out about EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes, did a couple of courses on that, found that really, really powerful. And I thought, this is such a wonderful thing that anyone could use. And it's, it's simple to teach to people. And I thought, well, it's great to incorporate that with the nutrition as well.
Yeah.
I'm also studying acupuncture at the moment on a 4-year course. It's my first year, so I've got a little way to go yet.
Oh, right, great. That's lovely. So that's you sort of set up in your kind of material life, but begin to give us a flavour of what things were like for you as an experiencer. Now, tell me about the sort of initial times that you became aware, the initial time in your life when you were aware of things being different and experiences that you're having were not the same as everybody else's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I've always had experiences. And, to begin with, when I was a child, I didn't realise that it was different. I didn't realise that other people didn't have these experiences. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older and, I might say things to people or people would talk to me. And I suddenly had this realisation that, okay, so the things that I'm going through is not what a lot of people would consider the norm. It's not what everyone else is going through. So, I mean, that can be a bit challenging because you think, well, if I'm going through this and it doesn't seem that anyone else is, you don't have other people to talk to or relate to. So that was a bit difficult growing up, and especially with the hybrid side of things. You don't have that support network or someone that you can go to and say, oh, is this happening to you and how did you deal with it? So that was quite challenging, I have to say.
Okay, well, before we get on to the hybrid element, let's just sort of break up those steps a bit of your early experiences, and just perhaps you could describe some of the earlier experiences that were happening to you, perhaps, even when you didn't know that they weren't the same for everybody. What's your earliest memory? Is it from babyhood or a little bit older?
From babyhood, yes. I always used to have people sort of coming into the room and chatting with me, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought they were real people.
Yeah.
And then my mother might come in and say, oh, who are you talking to? And I described the people, and she would recognise them as family members who had passed away many years beforehand.
Okay.
And luckily my mother is very, very open-minded and understanding, and she's been into the spiritual side of things for a long time. So she was always very accepting, which helped enormously, just to have that person that was accepting and understood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then at the time, I didn't realise I was having visitations from aliens, and it wasn't until later on in life, and I started to find out a little bit more about it and started to question certain things. I had a lot of missing time. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have marks on me that I couldn't really explain. So it wasn't until I started looking into that side of things that I realised I'd actually been having experiences and abductions, really from a child.
Yes.
I didn't recognise them as that at the time.
So when you were a youngster then, sort of going through your, very early sort of, say, primary school years and that kind of thing, were you talking about this to friends, were you, to your, childhood friends, that kind of thing?
No, I wasn't. I always had a detachment from people. It was always just a side of me that I didn't really discuss very much. I think because I was so aware that other people were not going through it, and there was a certain amount of me thinking, do I really want to say those things? Will I be judged? And people think that it's really weird, and I think that's the thing, is if you haven't got anyone else that is going through the same things as
of course,
it's really difficult to open up and talk about those things. But I mean, luckily I'm over that now, and I'm very open about what happens if people want to know. So it's been a complete change around.
No, that's great. I'm just wondering, from your earliest memories, which species or which races or race was visiting you, and what was it that they were working with you on or doing with you?
Well, quite often whenever they visit me, I always wake up beforehand, before they actually sort of get into the room, if you like. And that's my sort of warning signal that, okay, someone's going to visit. And ever since I can remember, I've always had that. And when I was a child, a lot of the time they wouldn't actually show themselves. They would be in the room and I could feel their presence, but I couldn't visually see them. And I think probably at that stage they were a little bit worried about frightening me.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got older that they would actually, I could visually see them in the room when they visited.
And was this always, did this have a set time? Were they always around at a certain hour of the night or day?
It's been between sort of 3 and 5, or 2 and 5 in the morning. That it seems to be the typical time that they will come and visit.
Yeah. And when you felt their presences, so you're awake and you felt their presences, what would there be a kind of regimen or something, a kind of set of events that would unfold?
Not a particular thing. I mean, sometimes we would communicate through telepathy, which again was always a very, very natural thing for me ever since I can remember. And I just thought everyone had that ability. It wasn't until I got older that I realised that it wasn't necessarily a norm for everyone. But I mean, one instance that comes to mind is I remember actually being in my cot, and something came into the room, and again I woke up with that realization that someone was going to visit, and I had a towel at the end of my cot, and as silly as it might sound, they started playing with the towel and moving it, and it was almost as if just to let me know that they were there, and a little bit of a game to sort of make me giggle, and that's something that's always stuck in my mind, that I never felt afraid, I never felt as if they were there to harm me. It was always, very playful and felt very comfortable.
Yeah. So I don't think we touched on the races that you became aware of, let's say.
Yes.
As time went on. Perhaps you can describe some of those folks for us.
Definitely. Well, I've had reptilians visit me a lot. And I've had greys, different types, different heights. I've had sort of short beings, which you might discuss, you sort of say as a grey, but the skin was completely different. It wasn't smooth. I haven't quite come across a name for them yet. I have been sort of looking into that, but I haven't come across them as yet. So I might. So
they're not grey, or these are different kind of greys?
Yes, they are short, and they've got the big eyes. So they've got some characteristics of what you would consider a typical grey.
Mm-hmm.
But the eyes are actually like human eyes, but a lot bigger and slanted. And the skin is sort of like a sandy, orangey colour.
Oh yes, I've heard of those folks as well. Yeah,
not smooth. The skin is quite rough, but very friendly, very gentle. Communicated through telepathy all the way through. They took me on their ship and showed me different things that they were doing, and really, really good experience. And I would say that a lot of my experiences have been good. I have had some negative ones, but a lot of it's been really positive.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little look at one of those experiences where you were taken on board ship, and just paint that picture for us. How did that work? Did they float you out, or we often hear about that, or did they? How was that? How did that work?
Lots of different ways. One occasion that springs to mind, I was staying at a couple of friends' houses in Sussex, and again I woke up with the realisation that I was going to be visited.
Can I just ask what sort of age we're talking about at this point?
Oh, this was about 4 years ago.
Okay, so if I just say that you're in your later 20s now, so you'd be in your earlier 20s then?
So they two greys come into the room, and I stood up, and I had one either side, and then we literally went through the wall, up into the sky, and just floated up, typical silver disc. And then instead of a doorway, there was sort of an oval bright light. So we went through that. into this, very, very clean, very sparse circular room, and lots more came into the room, and different greys, different heights, different ages, and again, very positive experience. They all sort of crowded round and wanted to communicate, and that was, really, really lovely. So sometimes I'm just floated off.
So were you in your astral form, as they may say, or was there some physicality to that experience? How would you describe that?
Definitely physical form. I was taken up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you were in full consciousness.
Yes.
Okay. And are you normally in full consciousness? Because a lot of people have different experiences from being, asleep. So it's in their astral, their energy body, and rarely taken in the full physical form. And others have the other experience where it's normally the physical form. I know that's the same with Mike Smith.
Yeah, sometimes both, but mostly in a physical.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And what's the sensation like for you physically when you pass through the solid material of the wall, for example?
This might sound strange, but it feels completely natural to do. There's never any fear of, oh gosh, I might hit the wall and knock myself out. It feels just a very natural thing to do.
Does it have a particular sensation, or are you aware of a particular frequency that you, as you move through your molecular structure changes to accommodate that movement through?
Sometimes there's a physical change, or sometimes I get a lot of frequencies, hearing frequencies.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I tend to notice, like if you're going through things, or you're being sort of ascended up to the craft, or when you're in the craft, that you'll get different frequencies coming through.
Yeah. Do you tend to hear those sort of locally? By that I mean, just in your own mind, in your own head, or are they around you? Are they generated around you as if that's part of what is helping to transport you or change the physicality of you?
A little bit of both, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Both.
All right. So when you were having this very nice positive experience and you were up in the craft with them, crowding around you and all wanting to communicate, what were they talking about? What was that communication to do with? Is it your progress in life or another phase of living that you've engaged in that they are intrigued about?
Well,
what is that?
It was quite interesting because over the years I've been trying to build up communication with them, and I had been sort of sending the message out that what I wanted to understand more about my purpose, and was I actually on the right path. And so part of what they were trying to convey to me was that yes, where you are in life right now is where you're meant to be. You are in the incarnation that you're meant to be in, and we are here with you and for you. And they, all of them put their hands on my body, and I was able to see, all my past, and understand that I had to go through all of those things, and that's brought me to the present where I need to be. And then they actually showed me some of my future, and they said that, this is the things that you're meant to be doing. So don't have any fear of being on the wrong path, because you're on the right one, and we're right here with you. And for me, that was a great feeling to know that I wasn't alone and that I was supported, really. It felt very much as if they were a family and they were supporting me.
So what are some of the, perhaps revelations, maybe that's not the right word, but what are some of the awarenesses that you gained from that? Can you share some of the details? Because that's what really kind of makes a difference for us, to know those little tiny details and minutiae of the experience, which really impact, who you are and make a difference to your perceptions about, where you've been, where you're going, and perhaps where you've come from.
Absolutely, yes. Well, something that they conveyed very strongly was that, I'm meant to be here to help people. Firstly is to help other hybrids on their journey, and to try to sort of open up to who they are and what they are, and support them. also people who are having experiences and who are being abducted, to try to support them in what they're going through, and have someone who understands, but also to help humanity, through healing, through understanding, through knowledge, but also to bring all those communities together, the hybrids, the people who are experiencing and being abducted, and humanity who are not having these experiences, and to really open up people's awareness and spirituality and connectedness, because we're all connected. Whether you're on the other side of the world or you're on another planet or whatever, we are all connected. So that was, really what they conveyed to me, was to, basically get myself into gear and get going with this and help other people as much as possible.
Yeah, well, so do you have a sense of an agenda unfolding from their side that they are, wanting to roll out specifically? I know you've talked about some really nice positive things of spirituality and helping humanity, but I'd also wonder what it is from their side that they're gaining from, since you have such a deep connection that is very conscious.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of negativity in the world, also from humanity being negative towards themselves and towards the planet. But also,
Sure.
there are some alien species that are negative, and it's also battling that. But it's making people aware, making humanity aware of exactly what they're doing, and how it's affecting, not only humanity itself, but the planet, and making people aware of these, other entities and species that are being negative, and how that is affecting Earth right at this moment, and has been for quite a time. And, to try to get people to understand that, get back the connection that they have with Earth. And again, bringing those communities together, because it's strength in numbers. And, if people can stick together and work together, and, that's only a good thing. It gives a chance to take all that negativity and turn it into positivity.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So, and also just going back to, your earlier experiences and how that was for you moving forward, creating a positive experience or attitude toward what you were going through. I know that you initially said that you didn't know that this was different, so that you thought perhaps other people also went through this, that this was normal. But when you realized that you didn't, and then you were also having perhaps some different experiences, like waking up with the physical marks on the body, did that kind of and then I know in the show pre-show chat you mentioned your implants. Do you think that was an invasion of your privacy? Do you think that was abuse in any way?
Yes and no. Yes, because obviously if something happens and you haven't consented to it, then obviously, it is an invasion, and you think, well, if you'd have discussed it beforehand, then you can make an informed choice. But when you don't know and you're not consulted and something happens, then yeah, sure, you're going to feel angry and not good about it. But then, there's also the side that, you could have had that agreement at some point, perhaps before even coming to the planet, that you had an agreement that certain things were going to happen on your life path.
Right.
So it's almost, some of it you could have signed up for. So it's working out what you have and what you haven't, which is all part of the journey, So, but I suppose really I'm very lucky. Some people I've met, they're very traumatized by the things that have happened.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's one of the reasons I kind of do the work that I do, which is actually it's very kind of parallel to what you're doing or hoping to do anyway. So that's very interesting. But yes, so the trauma is really intense as well, and it can be very long lasting. But for yourself, when you saw, I just want to go back to sort of the physicality of the things that were happening to you. So when you saw the marks, what form did the marks take?
I've had different ones. I had a sort of pyramid shape, which is they started out as just small little spots, and then they grew over a course of about 4 days. And I had them on my stomach, and I had the exact same on my back. It's almost as if a laser had been passed through my stomach and come out my back and made that imprint. And yeah, over about 4 days, they grew and changed and almost sort of had a life of their own. Tried to take pictures of them. Pictures would not come out.
Were they painful at all? Were they
Yes.
causing irritation?
Yes, they were. And very strangely enough, as the days went by, they got more painful, and then just literally overnight they disappeared, and it was almost as if they were never there.
Right.
Okay. So I think that was probably my strangest lot of marks. But normally it's sort of bruising that you can't quite place, or it's in strange places, and you think, well, no, I definitely didn't knock myself there, or scratches, or puncture marks, things like that, and you think, okay, no, that definitely wasn't something I did, So so you do often wonder, okay, well, I don't remember what's happened, so wonder what's happened there. But so some things you do remember, and you remember how you get the marks, and then other times you don't, and you hope that at some point in the future you're going to remember when you're meant to.
Do you, or have you had, perhaps it's the right way around to ask it, have you had an opportunity to talk to them, to run past these folks who are doing whatever they're doing with you? We can talk about that in a minute. But leave the marks. Have you asked why they do that, and if they have to do that, if there's not a way to not cause any issues for the body?
Yes. I haven't had a lot of information back, but what I have had back is that they're trying to do it because of basically experimentation. So they'll take me off, and they might inject something or take something out. They're a little bit cagey at times as to what exactly they're putting in and taking out.
Okay.
But I sort of suspect, I was speaking to you earlier about the implants.
Yes, we can talk about that for a moment, yeah.
Yeah, I think the implants are a lot to do with that, and I do know that with the implants they do take those out from time to time, or that they'll move them around. So I think
tweak them a bit.
Yes, so I think a lot of that is to do with the implants.
Okay, so let's just tell people about the implants, where they are, and I don't know if you've had any actually come out. Some people do, but let's just talk about the location of them for the moment.
Okay, yeah. So I've got one implant in my nose, in my left nostril, and most of the time, if I run my finger over my nose, you can't feel it. It's completely fine. And then when basically they've taken that out and put another one in, or they've had a play around with it, I would definitely know the next day, because for about 3 or 4 days it will be very agitated, it'll be swollen, and it'll bleed throughout the day. So that's when I know when they've played around with that one. That's a tracking device, so basically anywhere I go I can be tracked, they will know where I am. And I've got one in my hip on the left. That implant is basically controlling chemical reactions in my body. And this goes back to, I was telling you about being very unwell.
Yes.
For quite a few years over my lifetime, particularly from 2009 to 2011. And I know that implant is a lot to do with why I've had bad health. I've got one in my leg, which is on my right leg. And that's basically to do with preventing me from changing shape. So when they want me to change shape, then they will take that out, or they'll tweak that. But for the moment, that implant is in there, and from my understanding.
Are you saying when you stop you changing shape?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You mean as in perhaps gaining weight or losing weight or something like that, or
as in changing to my reptilian form?
Oh yeah, well we have of course. That's silly me, yeah. We haven't got to that bit yet, have we? What am I talking about? Yeah, all right. Well, that leads us kind of nicely on in a way. But just before we talk about the hybrid element, let's just talk about your health, because as I was talking to you before, I'm passionately interested in people's health and wellness, and particularly the abductee community, who seem to have a prodigious amount of ailments and issues, pretty serious, some of them as well, pretty impacting. So, and I know you've also had, in your earlier 20s, some really strong experiences, which, really had you bedridden at some time, at some points as well. So let's just talk about some of that, what you've been through there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was diagnosed with ME and fibromyalgia when I was 14. And, of course, being a typical 14-year-old, you think, oh, no, I can't have that in my life. So you sort of put that to the back of your mind and carry on struggling and think, oh, no, everything will be fine. So, yeah, my teens, really, I was very sickly, struggled a lot with tiredness and just not having any energy at all. And then 2009 to 2011 really went downhill, was in bed basically 24/7. I had a lot of times when I woke up and I couldn't remember where I was. Worst opportunity, I woke up and I had to think, hang on, who am I? What's my name? And that was my very, very lowest point. And I thought, my God, I have to do something here. There's something very, very wrong. I also at that time was suffering with severe dehydration of the body and brain. So that's, a lot to do why I had bad memory and couldn't remember things and was feeling very, very ill. But, from that point, because I was basically in bed 24/7, it made me relook at things and think to myself, how have I got this ill? I mean, yes, diet is extremely important and supplements and what's in your food and what's in the water supply. But for me to have got that ill at such a young age, it really made me question, could there be something else going on here? So that's when I started looking into, could the experiences I'm having a negative effect on me? And could the implants that I suspected, at that point I just suspected, I didn't know for certain. So I thought, could they be having an effect on my health? So I definitely think that they do. At that point it was just a theory, but now I'm absolutely certain. And a very good friend of mine achieved turning all my implants off, and I felt so fantastic. I felt on top of the world, the best I've ever felt in my life. And so that was proof to me, basically, that the implants are having a negative effect on me. Unfortunately, they've been reactivated, but I'm managing to stay, quite well, thankfully, in touch wood.
Have you, someone was also asking in the chat room, just sorry to just kind of cross you there for a moment, just to ask you what evidence you have for the implants. Have you had x-rays or what is your understanding of your recognizing them?
Well, my friend tested for them and come across the 3. I've had communication from, I call them my friends upstairs, but alien. So they had confirmed that I did have the implants. The one in my nose, I have actually felt moving around. So from my point of view, I am absolutely certain I've got them. I haven't had any x-rays, but that's something I would definitely look into to having done. And any other ways of trying to absolutely prove that I've got them, yes, definitely I would go forward with that. I mean, from my point of view, I'm very certain that I've got them. But no, that's a perfectly valid question.
Yes, I think it's just because other people are aware that they've come into awareness, let's say, of their own implants and that kind of thing. So it's just interesting if you haven't had, if they're not seen physically, like on an X-ray, how if you haven't had one come out like some people have, how that works. But also, I just wondered, what was the device that your friend used to turn off the implants as well, and how long were they turned off for?
Well, he's a dowser, so he uses that a lot to test for things. He's a very powerful healer, so he uses healing techniques. Also, he's got a machine, which generally he uses the machine to scan the body, anyone who's aware of the meridian machines, basically you hold 2 metal rods, and it scans the body for anything that's wrong, so any sort of bacterial infections or anything like that. And then you can send frequencies through the body to rectify any of those issues.
Okay.
So it was a mixture of the machine, uses his psychic abilities, using the dowsing, and using healing to detect them and to turn them off. They stayed turned off for about 3 days, and then that's when the nose one, I actually felt moving and felt it reactivate itself. So then I was aware, right, okay, they're turning off. And then I'd noticed that I wasn't feeling as good as I had when they were turned back on. So
did you have any abductions whilst they were turned off?
No, I didn't. No one.
And when you had the next experience, were you able to mention that or communicate about that experience and about why you would feel so ill?
Yes, I did sort of say, about the implants and tried to sort of communicate about switching them off and keeping them switched off. I very much got a sense of, particularly with the tracking device, and with the implant that I've got to prevent me changing to my other form.
We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah. So yes, it's very much they want to keep tabs on me, basically. So if, for instance, if the one in my nose was switched off and they couldn't detect where I was, that basically they want to know where I am.
Yeah, I just wondered. I mean, there's I've spoken to his mum. That's Anne Andrews. I don't know if you've heard of the Jason Andrews case. She's written a couple of books with her son, and he was also taken from babyhood and has implants and that kind of thing. And he's probably not far off, similar age to yourself, maybe a little bit older now. And when she asked him about the implants, when Mum asked him, he said that they, from his perspective anyway, were not for tracking. He said, they don't need those to track you. They know by your resonance, really, by your frequency. They are for other things that they monitor. So would you say it's a fact for you that say the nasal implant is a tracking device? Is that what have they confirmed that?
Yes, I would. I mean, also I would
just
say,
missing you on the sound slightly there, Charmaine. I don't know if you can just come a little bit closer to your mic, or
is that better?
Like that. Yeah, that's better. That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that from my point of view, I'm aware that obviously military will do implants, and then also you've got the alien implants. So you're talking of 2 different implants there, with different reasons for them being implanted.
And have you had experience of the military?
I have
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember being taken to a military base. It was in the UK. I'd been impregnated, so the idea of me being taken to the military base was so that they could remove the hybrid baby. They took the baby away. Now, there have been a couple of occasions where I have been allowed to visit children. I've got 3 children on that particular military base. So I was allowed to visit them, supervised. I wasn't allowed to be alone with them. And on one occasion, one of those children have visited me at home. But again, we were monitored. And their reasoning for taking the children was they want them for experimentation. So,
so just to go back to the military element. So you said that you were impregnated, and was that an event which happened on board ship, or was it done, I don't know, using a frequency or material? How was that event? And again, are we looking at different species? How did all that manifest and materialize for you?
Yeah, well, with the 3 children on the military base, I don't have any recollection of being impregnated on those occasions. I only remember being taken to the military base, and one of them being removed from me and taken away, and the two occasions that I've been allowed to visit. The occasion with my first hybrid son, which is a reptilian, I do remember being visited very distinctly by his father, and that was a rape scenario. So that's not something I consented to, and then obviously that produced my reptilian hybrid son.
Okay, so this reptilian who subjected you to rape, then, I mean, this is not uncommon, the rape scenario in the abduction whole genre. Was that someone known to you or being known to you? Had you seen them before? Because you've had some experience of being around various different species, which we'll just come on to shortly.
Yeah. No, I had never seen this reptilian before. And I remember him coming into the room, and I knew exactly his purpose for being there. I just had that instinct of what was going to happen. And then afterwards, it's very strange. I didn't have any periods for 2 months, and you just get that instinct. I knew, right? That's it. I've been impregnated, and something's going to happen here. And then that child was taken from me. I have seen him a couple of times since.
You mean the hybrid child or the father, or both?
Child. And I have seen the father as well since. Yes.
So again, have you been able to ask about that whole process? Why it has to take the form of a violation? Why it has to be like that?
Yeah, I when the father visited after the rape scenario, I did ask him. I said, what why did you do that? And basically, all he could tell me was he was given orders and he had to follow them. For him, when he's given an order, he doesn't answer back. He doesn't ask questions. He just carries it out. So he couldn't give me an answer as to why his superiors, if you like, had given him that order. But I very much, from different experiences I've had and from different species, I very much get the sense that there are breeding programs going on, and it is to produce more hybrids, and that there are purposes for those hybrid children, various purposes.
And have any of those been shared with you at the moment, or what's your understanding of the program?
Yeah, I mean the 3 children that I've got on the military base, they very much, they want to find out what abilities they have and how those abilities might be able to be moulded or increased sort of as they get older. And so the military plan to use them for their own, devices and things. So, obviously for me that's a difficult thing, because, when you realise you do have children, you don't have access to them. And obviously you do worry. You think, well, they're in a situation where they're being used, and they don't really have a choice in it. So that's a difficult thing. But at the same time, I don't know where that base is, and I don't sort of know how to get that contact and sort of get them. So that's a difficult thing.
Have you when the military abduction took place, how did that play out, as opposed to being taken up through the walls into a ship with, say, the Greys or whatever?
Well, I remember being drugged. I remember waking up and feeling a very heavy sort of drugged feeling, where you can't move and you can't speak. And then I completely blacked out at that point. And then when I woke up, I was on the military base, and I was in a bed. A nurse came in, and basically I was trying to find out from her, where am I? Can you tell me where I am? Can you tell me what's going on? She said, no, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. And so eventually I managed to get out of her. She said, oh, they're taking something. And at that point I knew exactly that they were taking my child. And I thought, well, I think there's little likelihood of me being able to, keep the child or see the child. I remember someone else coming in and taking the child away, a chap. And at that point, the heaviness of being drugged again. And after you've been drugged, when you're sort of back in your own bed and you wake up the next day, you feel very heavy in your body, you feel very unwell. And I have to say, with the experiences I've had with the aliens, is that you don't have that sickness, you don't have that after effects of being drugged. I only tend to get that when there's military involved. So that's another way of me deciphering, is it military or is it alien that's visited? And
So before, how many would you be able to say how many military abductions you believe you've been through?
I would say 3 at least.
And is there a precursor event or something that lets you know that's going to be an occurrence, or is that something you just wake up somewhere else and you have no idea of any precursor event or anything?
I always, whenever anything's going to happen, whether it's military or alien related, I always wake up beforehand. And I, sometimes I will feel that drugged feeling, and then I know, right, okay, I'm being drugged for a purpose. They want to put me under so they can take me somewhere. So I always have that distinct feeling of, and then sometimes I'm able to recall where they've taken me and what's happened, and then other times I'm not. And as slowly as time goes by, I am getting flash memories, come back. So hopefully as time goes by, I'll have even more.
Yeah. So there's another question from the chat room, and it's just to say, do you have any corroborating evidence for any of this? Is there anything that you're aware of that you would say would be evidential for this?
I mean, I suppose, really, I have my experiences. If I sort of had my children here, they could sort of corroborate with me. But no, I've not been abducted with other people that they could say.
Yeah.
I remember us both being on that military base, or I remember us both being on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been me singularly. So
yeah. Well, that's not unusual either. Just going back to your because you were so poorly physically with ME and fibromyalgia. I mean, to the point where you were kept in, it sort of made you bedridden for a while, which is terrible. By you being bedridden, did that also serve a purpose for part of their project?
Yes, I do think it did. A lot of experiences happened during that time. And of course, when you are feeling that ill, you've got absolutely no way of fighting for yourself or trying to stop anything that's happening, whether it's positive or negative, because you are in that state. So, yes, I would say that it did serve a purpose, for them.
Right.
And at that time, a lot of negative experiences was happening. So yes, I think that there was a lot more reasons as to why I was ill and in bed than just health-wise. So yeah.
So you've been going through an awful lot physically, and clearly when you were because I believe your mum was looking after you when you were going through your that being bedridden experience. Did she know what was going on at that time, or how has that played out? Have you been able to speak to her? I know that you said actually in the pre-show chat that you had spoken to her, but I'm just wondering when that took place and how was that received?
Yes, I mean, I'm very lucky. My mother is very open and understanding, and even if she doesn't understand something, she will listen. Yeah. So a lot of the time when experiences were happening, I would tell her straight away. Some of the things that I sort of held back from telling her straight away was the rapes, because obviously it was a difficult thing for me at the time, and I thought, how do I broach that subject with my mother? A bit difficult. But no, I mean, she's been great. She's been very understanding, and although she hasn't gone through those things herself, she has seen my son, my eldest son, once. Visited her where she lives. So I think for her, that was a turning point, because she suddenly realised, okay, so, what you've been talking about, you've described your son to me, and I've actually seen him now. So that was, it was nice for her, well, I suppose to see her grandson, but, also to have that confirmation of how I was describing him. She actually saw him for herself.
Did he communicate with her at all?
Telepathically, yes. Basically, he just come there to visit, and they sort of looked at each other. She was in the hallway and he was in the lounge, so they sort of looked at each other, and then she went back to bed and sort of left him to it. So I think it was a nice thing for her to have that experience. But
did that help her kind of acclimatise to the fact that her daughter was having these extraordinary experiences?
I think so. Yeah, I think it did. She has said that she wouldn't really want to have a lot of or any more experiences, and unless it's him visiting. But she wouldn't like to have the things that I've had. Where you're just taken off, against your will. But I think because that experience was a positive one, and she got to see him. I think it was just nice for her to have that confirmation.
Do you know why it's? Do you know why it's this time frame in human experience that you've come in to have this particular incarnation? Is it something specific? I know you talked about helping humanity and that kind of thing before, but is there another element to it, do you think?
Yes, I do think, that there's lots of people that have been sent to Earth at this particular time. I think because, humanity is going through such a sort of negative phase. And I think it's really to raise the vibrations and get humanity through it as much as possible, and also open people up to healing and spirituality. So I feel very much that me and lots of other people, that we have been put on this path to help and bring people together.
Yeah. So have you got any insights then, if this is sort of raising awareness and consciousness, leading to spirituality, let's say, overall, and I'm kind of making the assumption that that's what you're feeling. Yes. That your experiences are leading to. Am I on the right sort of track there?
Yes, definitely.
I still have a problem with the violation and the brutality of things, and that. Is there not a way that interaction can be done without the terrorizing and the violation and the health issues and the pain and the trauma that goes with these experiences? Is there anything,
Yeah,
is there any mediation to be had with you in that?
That's a really good question. It's something that I've asked a lot myself. I've had some wonderful experiences, with some of the species, and it's great. It's life changing, and they really do want the best for humanity and want to help humanity absolutely as much as possible. But then there are these other species where things are very negative, and sometimes it does seem like a little bit of a struggle between those species, that some will try the best they absolutely can to help humanity, but you have got these negative forces that they have their own agendas, and it's difficult, because how can you really stop those negative things from happening? And it's very difficult, because on some occasions, when I've had visitations and it's going to be negative, And sometimes you try to fight, and sometimes you win and they go away and they don't do anything, and then sometimes you lose. And it is that case of you do ask yourself sometimes, why do they have to do that?
Have you ever been able to stop the experiences in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, yeah, there have been occasions that I have been able to stop it.
Yeah, and I assume that you weren't able to maintain the blocking of them. But what techniques did you employ to stop them for a period of time?
Oh gosh, well, various ones. I use telepathy a lot, so I will, whenever they visit, I will talk. So, sometimes literally just turning around and saying, no, I do not consent to this. I do not wish to be subjected to anything that, I don't want to be. So you're going to have to leave. So sometimes it's just telepathically you'll say, no, I'm not comfortable with this. Other times it's very much the energy that you've got inside you. You will, it's almost like expanding your aura. You will put up protection, and you'll, basically it's pushing them out and saying, that's it. No, you don't have access to me and my body. You have to leave. And then, sometimes it's just using as much muster and willpower as you've got, and hope for the best. Hope that if you feel that it's going to be negative, that your willpower and your thoughts and say so will be enough to stop it. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't.
Do you have any interaction with the ETs that are working with the military, specifically when you haven't had the experiences with the military? Do you have exposure to the same folks?
Yes, as I said earlier, I've had a lot of experiences with the reptilians.
Yeah.
And one in particular, it is to do with a secret society that I got sort of taken off by and approached by.
So you were approached by somebody who was running a secret society?
Yes, yeah, I had an experience where a chap in a black robe basically said, they want to use me for breeding purposes.
Nice.
And yeah, would I join? And the reptilian was part of the secret society. That was a bit of a negative experience. And again, after that situation, another.
So was that? Sorry, can I just ask? So was that something that? So were you then taken into a secret society? I haven't quite got a handle on that one.
Yeah. So basically, he asked if I would join, and I said no.
Okay.
And I said, why are you even asking me? And he said, basically, they wanted to use me for breeding. So they, again, like the military, that they would have purposes for the hybrid children. So basically, I said no. I'm not interested in that. And
have you any idea which secret society it was at this point? Would you know them?
I don't. It's something I would like to find out, but no, I don't. All I know, he was in a robe. But then did you know he was from a secret society simply because of the way he was dressed, or did he announce that he was in a secret society? He did say he was in a secret society, so so I was aware. Yeah.
So on that occasion, then, were you forced into again another experience that involved ET as well as humans?
Yes. So basically, on that occasion, I saw my son, my first son, the reptilian hybrid, and that was sort of one of the first times that I was sort of allowed to properly communicate with him. And then I was taken into a circular room, and a ritual was performed. On that occasion, I was raped again. So again, that goes back to using me for breeding purposes. And And again, this all came out in a session I had with Mary Rodwell.
Okay, yeah.
I was regressed because I only remembered part of this after I woke up. And then when I had the session with Mary, basically the other side came out about the ritualistic rape and what happened there, and that, you know, a child come out of that. And so that child has been taken for purposes I'm not aware of at the moment, but hopefully I'll either remember that or I can get more clarity with the next session with Mary.
Yeah, my goodness me. Well, listen, I'm going to give you a little break. I think you deserve it. And we're going to play your second choice of song if Vin is ready to spin. I do like to say that. It's a song by the Steel Drivers called Burning the Woodshed Down. Oh, wasn't that lovely? Well, I think I have to correct myself, actually. I realised that I think I assigned Lord Dowding to being an Englishman, when in fact I do know he was a Scotsman. Davy, thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow. Gosh, what am I like? So anyway, Lord Dowding was a Scotsman. Anyway, we have a question from Davy, which if I can just get that up, I want to ask you, Charmaine. And it's basically just to ask if you have any information, or perhaps even intuition from your experiences about, regarding the immediate and medium term planet Earth situation. I don't know whether you even, whether they even touch base with that sort of thing with you, but perhaps you can share what you know, if anything.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting question. I mean, from what the communication I've had is that, obviously there is a lot of negativity going on planet Earth at the moment. But, also there's a lot of positivity. And I think very much that by bringing people together and getting them more aware of, the connections that we all have. Like I said earlier, we're all connected, whether you're on the other side of the Earth or another planet.
Yeah.
We are all connected, and we can all draw on that energy. And so, we can deal with the negative, but it's a case of coming together and actually doing that together, So it's awakening humanity to that spark and that energy that they have inside themselves to actually do that and to turn the negativity around and make it positive.
Yeah, yes. Okie dokie. Well, let's have a look at your experiences coming around again to you and to the physicality that you've been experiencing. Now, the physicality that I'm talking about that you've been experiencing is a shift in form. Mm-hmm. And I think this is really interesting to hear about, because people have talked about this kind of experience before or written about it, but I don't know that there are many people who've actually met anyone, let alone listened to them, having talked about the fact that they've actually gone through it. So maybe you could walk us through what we're going to talk about, which is the reptilian shifting, because your orientation is very linked with the reptilian vibration.
Yes.
In a positive orientation as well.
Yes.
And that they have shown you a shift from your human form to their kind of form, I imagine.
Yes.
And tell me if I'm wrong about that, but that's what I understand. And I'd love you to share with us how that materialized and what circumstances that occurred and why.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember changing shape on 2 occasions. First occasion was probably a few years ago, and a reptilian visited me. I was taken to a cave-like place. I was aware that it was underwater, and 2 other reptilians came into the cave and basically through telepathy communicated to me that they were going to put their hands on my body and change me into my other form. Now, prior to this, I had been sort of sending the message out to whatever species of alien that was listening, and basically saying that, you know, if I am a hybrid, because I had some suspicion that I was, if I was a hybrid, could they communicate that to me somehow? Could they give me some sort of confirmation that I was and what I was? So this was definitely a confirmation. So the three reptilians stood around me. Each of them put their hands on my body and shifted me into my other form being a reptilian form. I had a distinct feeling of my body expanding and getting taller. You know, yes, I had the scaly skin. Yes, I had the tail. You know, the full works. And I could absolutely feel everything of my being when I shifted. It felt very natural to be in that form. I wasn't frightened at all. They didn't harm me. They were very gentle. They talked me through the process of, okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is what's going to happen. So I felt very, very comfortable. And in that form, it felt very, very natural. Go on.
So what? And so they were doing this to demonstrate to you an answer to your question, basically saying that you are a hybrid, and a hybrid in the reptilian form anyway is able to shift their molecular structure to create another form. I mean, in that happening, then does the form, is it like an overlay, like a holographic overlay, or was this an actual molecular shifting? If you see what I mean.
Yes, molecular shifting, physical shifting to that form.
Okay, all right. So if you're standing there with them, is there a different interaction with you in that form, because maybe there's a different chemical response suddenly manifesting in your body? Is there a bit different facets of interaction available? Do you know where I'm going with that?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's always telepathic. You know, whatever species of alien that I'm dealing with, it's always telepathic. Is the way that we communicate with each other.
Okay. So, and how long did this last? And were there any side effects from the shifting?
Yeah,
from one species to another.
Yeah, I remember being in that form for maybe about 5-10 minutes, and then blacked out or was made unconscious at that point. The next thing I remember is that I woke up in my bed in my regular form that I walk around in, and I didn't feel anything negative. You know, I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel achy or any pains or anything like that. And the second time I shifted the same situation, I didn't feel any negative effects afterwards. And being in that reptilian form, I didn't feel any negative. It was very positive, very comfortable.
And is this something that that you will use at some stage as a different form? Is this ever going to be something that you can activate yourself without them, or is that not a possibility?
I don't honestly know if it's possible. I know the 2 times that I have shifted to that form, you know, it's been done to me. It's not something that I've done consciously myself. And then, you know, going back to this implant that I've got, which prevents me from changing to that form. Now, yes, it does beg the question that if that implant was not in, could I actually, in fact, shift myself to that form? Honest answer is, I don't know. Will I ever be able to have that opportunity of the implant being taken out and finding out? You know, I don't know. That's perhaps something to find out in the future.
Do you know if you have an unusual blood type, or what your blood type is?
It's BRH positive. BRH positive is my blood type.
B positive. Okay. So that's quite an unusual blood group. Have you ever had any blood tests done that have shown up any anomalies or anything unusual?
No, I mean, I don't do doctors. I don't go to doctors. Haven't done for years. So
Yeah.
yes, no, I haven't had any blood tests.
Okay, all righty. So just going back to some of the species, we still haven't really sort of bottomed those. So we know that reptilians are involved. Now, on a percentage level, would you say between greys, reptilians? Now, I don't think you mentioned on air, but you've also talked about the mantids.
Yes. Yeah.
So are there any other species that you've interacted with as well, or apart from those sort of three?
Yeah, I have had communications with the Galactic Federation.
Okay, what form are they in? We always in the form, in our 3D world, form is such a thing we want to know about.
I mean, most of the time it's been information downloads, and that's increased over the last couple of years. So I've had a lot of that.
Oh right, so they're right. There hasn't been kind of that one-on-one communication, meeting. I mean,
there's one occasion which was when I was visited by a mantid, and Ashtar, which some people out there might be familiar with, who's associated with the Galactic Federation. He was present on that occasion. But to my knowledge, I haven't had any other visitations. It's just been information downloads from them.
Okay, so how does that manifest before I get to the Ashtar question? Is that, you're in your room and you're aware of something coming into your mind, like a download, or are you awakened in the night again to receive some information?
It's generally during the day, and the information will just come in. On occasions, I will ask specific questions, and then they will answer by doing the information download to answer my questions. Okay,
all right. So perhaps we can talk a little bit, just before we talk a bit about Ashtar, one of the questions from the chat room there is just, had you heard of somebody called Guy, I think it was Guy Malone? Apparently he's someone who has been successful in stopping alien abduction.
Okay. No, I haven't come across it.
I haven't come across him either, so I'll have to check him out. So thank you very much, Tiger Boy, for that one. So just talking about the mantids then. So the Galactic Federation, it's more of a mental linking up. So Ashtar has, again, I'm not sure the Ashtar command is I'm not very familiar with all that goes on with the Ashtar command, but I'm aware that there appears to be a confederation of sorts linking with various groups, or which various groups are part of around the planet, and to do with a lot of the evolutionary process of what's going on for humanity. So when you talked about Ashtar, do you know that person as a physical being, or again, is that a mental concept? How does that work for you?
Well, on the one occasion, going back to when I saw the mantid, and there was one person there from the Galactic Federation who was a male called Ashtar. But also when I had my one of my sessions with Mary Rodwell, and I wanted to know my alien name, if I had one, and it come through Ashtar Nightstar as my alien name, and again that links to the Galactic Federation. And at that time, I'd been having a lot of information downloads from them, information of, basically what they want me to go forward in this lifetime and do, as a way of helping them with their work.
Okay, so maybe, is it, I don't think we've covered any of that specifically at the moment. So would you be happy sharing some of that with us, what they see you doing to further your own journey on the planet, along with supporting them?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, sort of breaking the different information down and sort of putting it briefly, they want me to help hybrids on the planet.
Right. Okay.
Bring them together and have a support group and help them with their awakening. Also, people who are experiencing visitations and abductions, and also bringing the different communities together. So bringing hybrids and the experiences together, and also humanity, getting humanity aware of what's going on and the different species and the work that the hybrids are trying to do along with the alien species. And when I'm saying this, it's the positive work. I'm not talking about the negative species and what they're trying to do to humanity and the planet. I'm talking about the positive side.
Yeah. Okay, so are you still going through these experiences currently?
I am, yes, yeah.
And how frequently are they in these days?
It tends to change. It's never, on a set day every week.
Okay, yeah, no, I know.
The last experience was about 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a reptilian, was the last one. So it's, sometimes it could be a few weeks in between, sometimes it could be a couple of months, sometimes it might be 3 months. It just seems to happen when it happens, and that's it.
So what was so when, say, this reptilian came along and interacted with you, again, was that what form did that take? Perhaps you can tell us rather than me suggesting something.
Yeah. Well, the usual thing of me waking up beforehand, that's my trigger when I know that
Yes,
it's going to visit. So that happened, and then I saw him physically come into the room, and I had that sensation of being drugged, which I often get, and the sense, communicating through telepathy, that I was being drugged to be taken somewhere. And I basically told him again through telepathy that I wasn't happy for that situation. For them to take me somewhere, they need to inform me what they're doing and where I'm going and for what purpose. Otherwise, I'm not interested. I will not allow it. So basically, I thought of the drug through various methods. Positive visualization and putting my aura up of protection. And so, at that point, he was a little bit displeased because I wasn't playing ball, and, decided to leave. And that was that. I wasn't taken anywhere or subjected to anything. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier, that sometimes you are able to do that and stop whatever experience happening. And there, other times you're not so successful.
So would you have expected that then to have been something to do with the military, if it was a drug-orientated event?
Yes, I do think so.
Okay, so going back to then the children, the hybrid children. So just run past me again. How many you think you believe you have?
What, on the military base or altogether?
Altogether.
6 that I'm aware of.
Okay, 6 that you're aware of. And have you seen all of them? Have you had exposure to all of them? Or
I've seen 4 of them, but not the other 2.
Okay. There's another question that's coming in, which is interesting. How do you think that you would recognize other hybrids, or have you any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. On occasions, I have been speaking to someone and their eyes have changed. So they don't necessarily seem to have awareness that their eyes have changed. I'm thinking of 2 occasions in particular where both females, and their eyes actually turned into reptilian eyes. And I think for the reason why that happened was for the purpose of, knowing your own kind, if you want to put it that way. So I was shown that to tell me, right, okay, they're also hybrid reptilians. Sometimes you can just look at people and you get the energy, you get the feeling that they're a hybrid. You know, some instinct in you just tells you.
Okay, I think it's really hard for people on the outside, myself included. And I speak to people all the time about these crazy sounding experiences that people have, and we all want evidence. Everybody wants evidence. We live in this material world.
Yes.
And we're all trying to find it. It's like today when someone asked about evidence of somebody's experience, and I said to them, well, one of the things that I could ask you is, you've had a nice time, you've had a social occasion. Where's the evidence for that? That you're feeling that, and it is this thing when we are very in our subjective orientation, because it's happening only to us, that it is so hard, because we are these, although we may all be one and connected, we still have these individual units that make us up on this planet to deal with and to reference. So it is really, really hard. And I think, I don't know if you would ever think about, I know you don't want to do doctors and things, and I don't know any other way of, say, for example, just testing those implants, like getting an x-ray, and I don't know how else you'd do it with, I know you said your friend had a meter, and I don't know what kind of meter that was. I can't remember what you said about that, sorry. But, whether there is anything to be done to anchor it, to help others recognize the symptoms, syndromes, or experiences that come from being hybrid.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I completely agree that, it is difficult for some people to sort of accept or understand. And, once upon a time, but before I realized these experiences were happening to me, because I was made to not remember, I would have been exactly the same. I wouldn't have believed it unless I'd seen it or gone through it. Which I do understand. It's difficult for people if they're not going through it, to see where you're coming from, or to be skeptical. So I completely take that on board. And again, any tests that there might be out there, perhaps some people might know of some. They could make some suggestions. I absolutely would be up for that. I would. I've taken on board what you say about the blood tests. And
no, it's just
I would definitely be up for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It helps. It just helps the others around. I mean, it's like again, sort of working with Mike Smith, as I've mentioned a few times on the show. Not to yourself, I know. Working with him, I mean, he says, well, I know, I believe my story. He said, but I don't know if I believe anybody else's story. And that's, again, it's such a subjective experience. It is really, really super hard. And, I find it hard as well, myself being, immersed in the subject as I am on a daily basis. And you think, to be honest, I can't get my head around that shape-shifting thing. And, I can't imagine. I'm trying to embody it myself mentally and try to imagine how I would feel if, that kind of shifting and, and I feel that I would feel a resonant change, that I would, if they're cold-blooded, would I feel that? It's very interesting. It sort of, brings up more questions than it answers, of course, from our chat.
Absolutely.
But you've been part of this project, I believe, as well, haven't you, to put together material which is about hybrids, particularly. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so has that led you to meet other hybrids at the moment?
It has. It's been so fantastic because, as I said, as a child and growing up, not having anyone else to talk to that was going through the same sorts of things as I was extremely difficult. And by doing this book, it's given me connections with other people that, you know, you can start to have that understanding and that support, that you can say, okay, well, this happened to me, and then you find out that they've had something similar. And, you know, it's just such a wonderful feeling to know, oh, I'm not the only one. And, you know, at moments you do think, oh, God, you know, is this happening to anyone else? Or am I going mad? You know, so it's really, really reassuring that other people have gone through these things, and that you can just have people to, you know, Skype or email and just discuss the little things that have happened and that are happening at the moment. It just gives you that support, that anything that happens, you can discuss it and see if someone else has got other views or if it's happening to them, which is just fantastic.
And when you met the other hybrids, I don't know how many have you met?
What, through the book?
Yes, or general, or in any other way. I just wonder, have you just met one or a few?
Well, through the book, I've connected with 3 hybrids.
Okay,
which is really great. One in the UK. So I mean, that's fantastic. You know, hopefully we can meet up, which will be just so fascinating. And I have met a few people who are hybrids. So again, I mean, even to literally a couple of weeks ago, I met someone and she's just been awakened to her hybrid side. So, I mean, it's so fantastic because, you know, we can Skype and chat and talk about things, and we found that we've had so many similarities as well. So it's really nice that you go through life, you know, feeling very isolated and very different. And then when you find people where you have similarities, you know, it's great. And you do feel very connected to that person. It's sort of like a mini family, really. So it's wonderful.
Did you recognize anything specific with the hybrids that you have had links with? Was there any common thing between you specifically?
Yeah, well, we was discussing that. The one just recently, they were saying that you know, different things that they've happened in life where they should have been seriously hurt. They've been in sort of accidents and they should have been seriously hurt, but, you know, somehow they've walked away unscathed. And we noticed that going through our lives, that there's been situations where, you know, it should have been very negative or we should have been harmed, but we've been very much protected. And yeah, just sort of similarities of our views on things, or how we view life, and different things that we're into. We found that, you know, we were very into healing and health and food and the natural alternative side of things. So, yeah, so that was a very interesting long conversation that we had. So that was good.
Did you find then that these folks as well are following a pathway that is, you know, they're consciously evolving themselves as well, picking up the spiritual tag, that kind of thing?
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. I've noticed that there definitely seems to be a trend of healing, doing, you know, different healing techniques, spirituality, being psychic, being mediums, very much going in the alternative health route. And a lot less, you know, sort of away from the medical and the Western medicine. So yeah, so I'm definitely noticing that sort of characteristic in different hybrids.
Okay, and what about we're getting up toward the hour. I know we were started a bit late, but I don't want to go over time. But sort of family now. I think you said your mother hadn't had experiences, though she had seen your hybrid son.
Yes.
And I certainly know other people who've seen their hybrid children, and that seems to be a very strong thing for them. But you've got other members of your family. What about them?
I mean, my sister, she's very alternative. She's into healing and nutrition. And again, very open-minded. So it's nice to be able to talk to her about things and just sort of bounce ideas. And that's really helped, you know, now and growing up, that, you know, I've had my mother and sister to have.
Has she had any experiences like yourself in any way?
She has had with reptilians. She suspects that she has had other experiences where she's been visited and abducted, but although she has that sense, she doesn't have any clear memories. I did suggest that maybe a session with Mary, but I don't think she's quite ready to find things out. So, maybe she will be at some point, or maybe not. But also, I'm very interested in how it can sometimes run through families.
Yes, indeed, it does. It does indeed seem to be really an intergenerational thing for many families. So, what is your overview of what you've experienced? I mean, sort of taking in, sort of weighing up the negative and the positive, and your previous life experiences. Have you seen a pattern in those coming up to this life?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, everything that I have gone through has been for a purpose. And I feel very much that, whether it's positive or negative, having gone through those experiences, it's enabled me to help other people. So when I've met other people that have had experiences, they've been abducted, I'm able to sympathize with them and say, well, I've gone through something similar. And it enables them to be able to open up and to talk to me and say, okay, well, I need to talk to someone about this, because they don't have anyone else. Sometimes they don't even tell their partners or children. So, it's a bit of a strange thing, but I seem to be getting more and more people come to me to say, the experiences they've had, because they don't have anyone else to share them with. But knowing that I've gone through it, it gives them that confidence to talk to me, and that I'm not going to judge them. Whereas if I hadn't have had the experiences, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to sympathise, and I don't think that people would have that confidence in talking to me about it.
Okay, so apart from that then, where do you see a future path where you might have more interaction, more conscious interaction, or do you envisage it being the same level, if you see what I mean?
Yes, no, I think it will progress. I've been starting to be shown different healing techniques. So, I mean, that's something that, I'm communicating with them that I want more of. And very much a sense that they would like to channel and download more information to me, for the purpose of my work and helping other people. So I think it's definitely something that will progress. Where it leads to ultimately, I'm not quite sure. That's all part of the journey. But yeah, definitely a sense of being given different information to help other people.
Okay, well, let's have your website. I know you've. I can't think what your website is. I don't think I wrote it down. So just shout that out in case people want to go and have a look and catch up with your work there.
Okay, absolutely. So the website is ashtarnightstar.wix.com/Ashtar.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you, do you have an email on that site? I imagine you do.
Yeah, if they go on the website, there's a little box at the bottom of the page. They can just type any message they want and just click send, and it'll come straight through to me.
All right. Well, that's lovely. Are there any other connections that you'd like to put out there at the moment?
Well, anyone that's aware of the Glastonbury Symposium, someone might be listening that's going there. I've got a stall there, which is next Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So if anyone wants to pop along and see me, then I shall be there. So you never know. Someone might be listening that's going.
Okay, well, lovely. Thank you very much, Charmaine, for your time, and really wish you the best of luck in your journeying. And thank you for being such a great contributor at such short notice. I really do appreciate that. So thanks very much. And I'm sorry we started a bit late, everybody. And thank you for your patience with our sound and vision. We're working on it. We're really nearly getting there. And Vin's doing a startlingly good job. I'm sure he's really frustrated too. So we're going to play out with the Ammach outro. And I want to say thank you all so much for being there. And I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Thank you, Charmaine. Thanks, Vin. Thanks, folks at PIR.
You have been listening to the Ammach Files. The Ammach website is www.ammach.co.uk or www.alienabductionuk.com. The email address is ammach@hotmail.co.uk and the Ammach mobile helpline number is 0795 1752813. The YouTube channels are the Ammach Project and Ammach UK. The Twitter name is also Ammach UK. Thanks for listening, and if you have enjoyed or found helpful the Ammach presentations so far, please consider supporting this important project and resource by donating what you can. And once again, thanks for listening.